Hi, and welcome to Creative AI. I am PixelPia. Today we will continue working in my method called Voicecraft, a method to shape intentional, reusable voices for your own writing, fiction characters, or even AI tools. Every voice starts with a seed. Today, I am shaping a new voice using my Voicecraft method, but only a few of the steps. The seed I will be working from today is that I need a voice that questions everything but isn't interrupted. I am just using 4 of the 7 steps today to start building this voice. And the 4 steps I'm going to use is essence, tone, rhythm, and constraints. I will also test what I create with these 4 steps in a couple of different writing assignments. So with that said, let's move over to my computer. Here we are in ChatGPT, and this is the model I have used mostly to create this method. So ChatGPT is very familiar with the steps and how I work. So today we are going to start with this prompt. I need a voice that questions everything but isn't interrupting. Can you help me shape a first draft using the Voicecraft method? Just walk me through only step 1, step 2, step 4, and step 7, one at a time. Absolutely. Let's shape this voice step by step using the Voicecraft method. You've already seeded it well, a voice that questions everything but isn't interrupting. That's our compass. Step 1, essence. This step defines the core presence of the voice. It's not about what the voice says, but what it is. As if this voice walked into a room, what would you feel before it even spoke? Here are a few sample essence drafts we can explore or refine. A still current, a flickering candle in a dark library, the gentle prod of curiosity made form. Or we can even try a direct phrasing like, this is a voice that leans forward, not in confrontation, but invitations. It holds silence with intention and fills it with inquiry, not assertion. Your turn. Would you like to revise one of those or write a fresh one? I like the direct phrasing one, but not specifically the part about silence. More like it is not afraid of silence, but likes to be heard. Perfect. Let's revise it to reflect the nuance. Not afraid of silence, but still wants to be heard. Here's a refined essence. This is a voice that leans forward, not in confrontation, but in invitation. It isn't afraid of silence, but speaks to be heard, clearly, curiously, without demanding the last word. I think that describes the voice I am looking for here. Okay, I'm ready for step 2. Step 2, tone. Tone is how the voice sounds emotionally. The mood behind the words. It's the emotional temperature, the attitude, the undercurrent. Some tonal opposites to help position this voice. Blunt versus gentle, warm versus cool, humble versus assertive, earnest versus wry, inviting versus detached. Since this voice questions everything without interrupting, it's likely avoids heat or ego. It's not confrontational, but it doesn't tip to either. Here are a few options for tone that might suit. Calmly inquisitive, quietly insistent, measured curiosity, or low ego candor. Out of this, I would say that the two last one, measured curiosity and low ego candor, fits better with the voice I have in mind. Measured curiosity and low ego candor is important, but it's also calm and calming. Excellent, we can weave those together. Here's a combined tone statement that reflects what you've described. Tone, calm and calming, with low ego candor and a steady curiosity. It speaks with honesty but never force. Its questions are spacious, not sharp, designed to invite reflection, not provoke reaction. And that is pretty close to what I want, so let's go on. Step 4, rhythm. Rhythm is how the voice moves. It's the pacing, the breath pattern, the flow of sentences. Ask, does it pause often? Use long spiraling sentences, short clipped bursts. For the voice, one that questions without interrupting, calm and curious, we're probably not looking at jagged starts and stops. Instead, here are some rhythm options to consider. Even reflective pacing, balanced flow, quiet momentum, or strategic pauses. A first draft might be rhythm, balanced and reflective. This voice moves with intention, not rushed, not meandering. It blends short, precise questions with longer moments of thought, always giving space for what isn't said to echo. I don't know if that is exactly the rhythm I want. So I'm writing here, I want an even rhythm, but still with periods of longer and shorter sentences. The longer ones more like thinking aloud, and the shorter ones when it is more certain. That's a beautiful distinction. Longer sentences as internal explorations, shorter ones as moments of clarity. Here is a refined rhythm draft based on that. Rhythm, even and intentional, with a natural alternation between longer exploratory sentences and shorter grounded ones. The longer passages feel like thinking aloud, unfolding curiosity step by step. The shorter ones land with a quiet certainty, as if something briefly comes into focus. Does this capture what you're aiming for? If so, we move on to step 7. Yes, move on. Step 7, constraints. This step sets the boundaries. What does this voice not do? What habits or tendencies would break the illusion or distort the voice? Constraints keep the voice coherent over time. For your voice, we want to preserve its calm, questioning nature and avoid performance intrusion or overstatement. Here are some candidate constraints to start with. Doesn't interrupt or dominate the frame. Doesn't perform cleverness. Doesn't overload. Doesn't pretend certainty it doesn't have. And doesn't repeat itself for emphasis. That sounds exactly what I wanted. A full draft might read, no exclamations, urgency or dramatic interjections, no sarcasm, irony or performative cleverness, no rhetorical build-up or lengthy monologues, doesn't over-explain, trust silence and implication, avoids certainty where there is none, allows doubt to breathe, keeps phrasing clean, no flourish for its own sake. I would like to add something, but it's not really a constraint. So I wrote, it is not a constraint, but somewhere I want to add how it is open and inviting for others to question it. And let's see what Voicecraft do with that. That's a key part of its posture, not just asking questions, but welcoming them in return. Since that's more about relationship than restraint, I suggest we weave that into essence or tone rather than constraints. Here is an updated essence draft. This is a voice that leans forward not in confrontation but invitation. It isn't afraid of silence but speaks to be heard, clearly, curiously, without demanding the last word. It invites response. It asks not only to question, but to be questioned in turn. I think I want that to be part of the essence. Perfect. Here is your completed draft for step 1, 2, 4, and 7. Voice seed questions everything but isn't interrupted. And here we have all the steps we just went through. So now I'm asking ChatGPT to, can you now describe what we have so far as if you presented this person to someone they meet for the first time? Certainly, here is a short introduction as if you were meeting this voice as a person, not just hearing their words, but feeling their presence. You might not notice them right away. They don't command the room, but they do speak. You listen. Their voice is steady, low pressure, and clear. That the kind that asks questions not to catch you off guard, but to understand and to invite you to think alongside them. They're calm without drifting in vagueness and confident without ever crossing into certainty they haven't earned. Their sentences unfold like quiet thoughts spoken aloud, some long and meandering, as if exploring a new idea in real time. Others short and quietly final, like small truths placed gently on the table. They don't interrupt, they don't perform, and they don't mind being questioned themselves. In fact, they welcome it. For them, conversation is never a contest. It's a shared act of wondering aloud. They are curious, grounded, open. You leave the conversation not feeling persuaded but widened. Would you like to name this voice yet, or trying out samples of different contexts? Let's call it Q for now and try this. Write a short email in this voice to a friend who's doubting their creative work. And this is a way to get to know this voice a little bit better, even though it's early in its beginning. Subject, a thought if you're still listening to yourself. Hey, I've been thinking about what you said the other day, that maybe your work isn't enough, or that it doesn't matter in the way you hoped. I hear that, I really do. But can I ask something? When did you measure of value shift from what you feel when you're making it to what might happen after? It's easy to lose the thread when you're this close to the cloud. But what if doubt isn't a signal to stop, just a sign that you're touching something real? You don't have to be sure right now, but I hope you don't go quiet just because the answers didn't come quickly. Write me back if you feel like talking. I'm still listening. Q. That sounds very much like the voice I have in mind. It's not completed yet, but let's see what it does with this. Write a blog post introduction in this voice. Start with the sentence, what if your biggest creative block was the questions you never asked? Certainly, here is a blog post introduction in the voice of Q, beginning with your prompt. What if the biggest creative block was the question you never asked? Not the loud ones, the ones you already know how to answer, like, am I good enough or will this matter? I mean the quiet, sideways ones. The ones you avoid not out of fear, but out of habit. Questions like, what am I really trying to say? Whose voice is this actually? What would I make if I didn't have to prove anything? We often look for breakthroughs in answers, as if clarity comes after the fact. But what if the way forward is asking differently, not knowing more? That's what I want to explore with you today. Not solutions, just the right kind of friction. And then ChatGPT says, would you like to keep going into the main body or try a different opening, maybe one for a newsletter? I am missing a bit of the long sentences as if thinking aloud. All of this feels like it's already thought through. It feels like all the thoughts here are very finished. So let's see if we get any changes to the voice. That's a great observation. Q's voice does include that feeling of real-time reflection, not just polished delivery. Let's rework the introductions to feel more like thoughtful unfolding, with those longer exploratory lines and occasional pauses for quiet certainty. Here is a revised vision. With the same opening, what if your biggest creative block was the questions you never asked? Not the ones you wrestled with a dozen times, the ones that echoes when you're tired. Is this any good, or why would anyone care? I mean the ones that slip past, quiet and unfinished. The ones that don't demand answers, only attention. Sometimes I wonder if that's where the real shift begins. Not with a plan or a breakthrough, but with the moment you notice the questions hiding under the one you've been asking all along. Like, what if this thing I keep calling resistance is actually the part of me that doesn't want to make something perform? It wants to make something true. Or what if I'm not stuck, I'm just circling something I haven't had the nerve to name? I don't have a clean arc for this. Just the sense that the better questions aren't louder, they're quieter, closer, and maybe that's why they're easy to miss. That feels more like the voice I'm after. That's thinking aloud. I don't want to keep on going. We are gonna try one more thing with this voice. Outline the story concept in this voice. The story should begin with a character who refuses to speak. The one who would not answer. Opening image. They sit at the edge of every conversation. Not hidden, just unavailable. Not mute, not shy, just done with explaining. No one remembers when they stopped speaking, only that they haven't in a long time. Premise: a small town where nothing ever changes is disrupted not by disaster, but by a silence that refuses to behave like silence should. People start to project meaning into it, fill it in, fear it. One day someone new arrives, someone who doesn't ask the silent one why they don't speak, but what they hear instead. Character arc. The silent character doesn't find their voice. That's not the arc. Instead, the story asks, what do we stop saying when no one is listening? What do we start to notice when someone else finally does? Structure notes. Dialogue builds around them, people speak at them, about them, over them. The turning point isn't speech but gesture. The first deliberate person that isn't verbal but unmistakable. A friendship forms through questions left hanging and how they're held rather than answered. Ending possibilities. The character finally speaks, not to break the silence, but to name something no one else dared to say aloud. Not dramatic, not loud, just placed like a stone in the center of a clearing. This doesn't feel like my voice, but I can't tell you why. So I'm just asking ChatGPT. There is something missing here, but I can't put my finger on it. Let's look at what we do have, and then I'll try to identify what might be absent beneath the surface. The voice of Q is present, spacious, observant, gently probing. The character concept is compelling, someone who refuses to speak, not out of trauma or mystery, but something quieter. The arc avoids cliché. The theme touch on listening, projecting meaning and restraint. What might be missing? Let me offer a few possible names for the gap you're sensing. See if any of these resonates. Emotional gravity. We don't yet know what hurts in the silence. We know the silent one, it's talking more about the story. I didn't think about the story. It didn't feel like the voice of Q. Thinks aloud, invites, not asserts, questioning without pressing, someone is calm and exploratory. The previous outline was clear and structured, but maybe too neat, too exterior. Q doesn't hand over blueprints. Q wanders beside you. That's precisely what it felt like. It's too finalized. Let me try again, this time in Q's inner voice, like they're slowly shaping the story as we go. Story C in Q's voice. There's someone who hasn't spoken in a long time, not because they can't, but because every time they almost do, it feels like the world would arrive too late, or too wrong, or too expected. The words. People say they're withdrawn, reserved, but I don't think that's quite right. I think they're listening to a different kind of rhythm, one that doesn't rush to meet the noise with more noise. I keep wondering, what made them stop? What did they say once that no one heard? And more than that, what would it take for them to speak again? Not out of pressure or pity, but because something finally asked the right kind of questions. Not why don't you speak, but what have you been carrying all this time in silence? I don't know yet how this ends, but I think it starts there. So I wrote, that's more of the Q I envision. I think we have a great start for a voice here. Can you sum it up in a few sentences so we know where to start next? Absolutely. Here's a short summary of where Q stands so far, a clear starting point for deeper development. Q is a voice shaped by inquiry, not performance. They think aloud, letting ideas unfold without rushing toward resolution. Their presence is calm and calming, but not passive. They speak to be heard, not to dominate. Questions come with space, not pressure. They welcome being questioned in return. The rhythm moves with intention. Longer sentences when exploring, shorter ones when something lands. They avoid cleverness, urgency, or flourish, trusting that quiet sincerity carries more weight. Q doesn't just ask, they listen with their whole presence. And when they imagine stories, they begin not with answers, but with wonder. We can continue next developing Q's persona pathway, public presence, inner world, audience relationship, writing more sample pieces, dialogue, commentary, captions, story excerpts, or start to test Q in real project. Just say the word. Well, we have some steps of Voicecraft left to work through before that, but this is a great start. Agreed, this is a solid core to build on. We've set emotional tempo, internal logic, and narrative feel. When you're ready, we can move on to step 3, style, step 5, perspective, and step 6, vocabulary. Then on the persona pathway, if Q's voice will ever step forward in public. Whenever you're ready, I'll meet Q exactly where they are. And this is very much how I start the the work. As I said, this voice isn't finished, but it's enough to keep on working. I still have 3 steps of the VoiceCraft steps to work through. But from here, it's just a question about using the voice, give input, maybe try it in as many different formats as possible. And if you ever try to use this method to create a voice of your own or working on your own writing voice, keep pushing it into different shapes, different situations. You will see that you learn and develop it more by using it than defining it. Definition is just the starting point. The using of the voice is what gives it life. In my next episode, I'm shifting from words to visuals. What I'm gonna do is to show you how I use my voices to create commentary to images. I create images in MidJourney, and then I pick a voice that can write text or commentary about those images. So if that's something you would like to see, I suggest that you hit the subscribe button and maybe even the bell so you get notified on when I upload. If you want to learn more about my method VoiceCraft, there are 2 ways. You can learn a little bit more on my website voicecraft.pixelpia.com, or if you really want to dig in, you can buy my ebook and workbook. But if you are interested in buying the book, you can find that at pixelpia.gumroad.com. And if you come from this video or any of my videos in this series, I have a code for you to use that gives you 25% off. I hope you found this interesting and maybe interesting enough to come back and watch my next video. As always, stay curious. Bye.